welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, March 16, 2021. As always, we're coming live from the Sirius Star System studios here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I hope all is well with everybody. So tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patty's Day to all of you that are going to celebrate it. I hope if you do go out, if your state allows you to go out, that you're being safe and you're having fun. And if you're out drinking, please make sure you Uber or get a Lyft or have a friend drive that hasn't been drinking, because remember, we got to practice safety when we're having fun so that we can all go home safe. So I want to talk about a couple fun facts about St. Patrick's Day, because a lot of us, one of the things that I've come to learn is that a lot of us don't understand why we celebrate things. And I'm not going to go too crazy into it because, you know me, I'm a nerd. I'll get into all the details all day. But a couple of the fun facts that I've learned about St. Patty's Day was that St. Patrick wasn't actually Irish. He was born to Roman parents, and he was actually English, and I found that funny because we celebrate it. But his actually birth name was Maewyn Suckett, and that's his actually real name. And so he was actually kidnapped at the age of 16 to Ireland by Irish raiders, and that's how he ended up in Ireland. And I just think it's really funny because when we think of St. Patrick's Day, we think of the clover and we think of green, and everything's green, and leprechauns and all sorts of good stuff. But the actual color that was associated with St. Patrick's Day and everything before that was the color blue. And the reason why was because blue was the color of the royal court, and it was also on the Irish flag at the time. Later, obviously, it's been changed to green and orange and white, but yeah, it's I just thought that was amazing facts, and I love learning about that stuff. So anyways, yes, I'm going to stop being a nerd for a second, and but if you guys are going to go out tomorrow or tonight, make sure you have a fun and safe St. Patrick's Day. So all right, guys, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and Daily Motion as always, and the replays will be in the links below. So I'm really excited about today's show because we have a lot of female guests on, and we do have some male guests on, but this guest in particular, when I reached out for guests and he emailed me, I really found what he did amazing, because this is something that we don't talk a lot about on the show, and I think it really needs to be addressed. But Elliott Katz was married and divorced, and like a lot of people at first, he blamed the other person. And like a lot of men, he thought that he was a good husband. Asking himself what he had learned, he went on a journey to learn what it means to be a man. He learned insight into changing his life, and now he shares these insights and being the strong man, what a woman wants, timeless wisdom on being a man, which has been translated into 24 languages and publishers in Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So please help me welcome to the show, Elliot Katz.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. So, Elliot, before we get into what you do and everything, tell us a little bit about who you are as a person.
Well, I live in Canada. I'm retired. I was a speechwriter for a lot of my career, and now I'm like I said, like you talked about, I'm on a mission to change the men of the world. But aside from that, I like to go canoeing and cross-country skiing and hiking and bicycling. I try to keep pretty active.
Absolutely. So, I do a lot of kayaking, especially kayaking and fishing. And, what's funny is when we're down here, we always got to be aware of the gators down here because there's a lot of them. So you don't have that threat up there.
No, we don't have alligators here. We have other things. Bears. Do you have bears?
Oh, bears, yes. Bears, yes, definitely. Do you have black bears or brown bears up there?
We have both brown bears and black bears. Actually, in Ontario, I think there's mostly brown bears. And one of the things when we go canoeing is you have to put the food up on the tree, and it's sort of like one of the fun events is trying to get this heavy plastic barrel of that weighs a ton, get it up into a tree to keep it away from the bears. So that's a fun event of every evening on a
Yeah.
canoe trip.
Yes, I've been in that area a few times because I've been up there for Toronto Gay Pride and just some friends of mine live up there and I think there's I can't remember one of the towns one of my friends moved to. It was Saint something and it was in the Toronto area and it's a beautiful area up there. I love Toronto. The people were fabulous up there. Everybody was nice and what was funny is because coming from Florida where people are a little bit about themselves. People would hold the door open for, and I was so not used to that. People would say hi to me, and and I was just, and I thought, wow, this is a very friendly town.
Well, okay. Well, I'm glad you you felt welcome there.
So one of the things that you said, Elliot, was that you're on a mission to change men. Is that possible?
Well, I am because you know what, a lot of men. I've met a lot of divorced men, and they're good people, and a lot of them really tried their best, and they want to be good people. They wanted to be good husbands, and I think men today they receive all these confusing messages about what a man should be in a relationship. That really leads to a lot of problems. I remember when I was getting divorced, I was invited to this session by with a family law lawyer that a men's group was putting on, and I thought, oh, they would be helpful. I'll go. I'll learn things, and then, uh, I thought, well, wait, I'm not going to fit in. These guys are domineering and controlling. I was a nice guy. My wife didn't appreciate what a nice guy I was. So I went to the meeting, and they're all the nicest guys you could ever meet, and they all couldn't understand why their wives didn't appreciate what nice guys they are, and and it really, sort of shook up my whole thinking. It's like, wow, it's like, you know, when I said, it's all my wife's fault, I knew I was right. But when these guys said the same thing, I thought, well, wait, how should you have been different? So I realized if I asked them that question, I had to ask myself that question and
Yes.
realize, it's easy to blame and it's easy to say, well, the only solution is for the other person to have changed. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. You got to say, how do I have to change? How do I have to be different? People talk about working on a marriage. It's really, to me, it's really about working on yourself. How do I have to be different to achieve the kind of, relationship I want? To sit there and think, well, if the other person just changed, everything would be okay. Well, you could wait a long time. You could wait decades, and
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. So it's really that's what happened to me. I said, well, what do I have to learn? How do I have to be different? And the fascinating thing was like I realized, there was so much wisdom that have been written over the generations of the older men teaching the younger men about how to be married. And like this generation, we weren't taught it. We hear all these very negative things about men being toxic and controlling. 2018 toxic was the word of the year about being abusive. The men I know and myself, we don't want to be that. We want to be
Yeah.
good men. Like, well, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a good man? That was really the beginning of what I had to learn.
I think that's amazing that you took your challenges and you took what you're going through and instead of and it is our natural instinct because our ego gets going and it's like no you did it and you want to point the finger and hey women are just as guilty of it as much and I think that's our natural instinct is not to want to point our fingers because I think our brain wants to create this homeostasis type of idea within us well hey we're good it's the other person's fault I'm doing everything right I'm doing and it creates this illusion and I think what ends up happening is we fool ourselves into thinking and then we go into the next relationship with the same habits and we do those over and over and I think one of the most amazing things that someone can do is just exactly what you said is what hey have that awakening where wait a minute all these people are nice like me so what is it about me that I need to change.
Right, right. And you say about if a person doesn't change, they go into the next relationship because it's really just another version of the previous person, with a different name and a different face. But really, you see it. I mean, it's like the same person over again. And like you say, well, wait, how did I end up in like the same situation with a different person when this
Yes.
this is a different person, but how did I end up in the same situation? So you have to ask yourself, what's the common denominator? Me.
Yes.
They are reacting to me and you say well like but I was trying to be good and so it's like what do I have to like I said what did I have to learn and that's really what my book is about is like the journey of what did I have to learn? What should I have known? If I had known these things earlier, things would have been different. And that's the response I often get from people who are divorced. They said, if I had known this when I was married, I probably wouldn't be divorced today.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's where we have to shift our perception of life, and I think it's healthy for us because one of the things that we the victim inside of us, I always break down the ego without going into like the super ego and the id. I always break down the unhealthy ego into the victim and the survivor, and the victim and the survivor like to play on each other. At first, when something traumatic happens to us, we like to beat ourselves up, point the fingers, and say, "Oh, it's always me." And then the survivor comes in and says, "No, it's them." And it's like this ping pong match. And our perception of life really gets skewed. And I don't know how many times I see my friends repeat the same relationships, whether it's a female or a male. They repeat the same patterns over and over, always. And they're always like, "Well, why do I have such bad luck? Why do I always pick the same person all over again?"
Right,
And
right.
it's exactly what you said. The common denominator is you. And unless we change that perception of ourselves where we have to learn to focus on what we're doing that we need to change, I think those patterns are going to stay consistent throughout our life.
Right. And I tell people, who are divorced, I said, you're not ready to start, meeting another person until you could look at yourself and say, how did I have to be different? What should I have done differently? And then you could go into a new relationship, and when the person says to you, well, why are you divorced? What happened? You could say, well, let me tell you about what I learned. I take responsibility for my mistakes. Let me tell you what I learned and how I feel I'm now ready for a new and better relationship because I feel I'm a different person today. That's really the key thing.
Well, and absolutely, you seem very nice. You seem very personable, and I think that's the funny thing about it. And I love the fact that you wrote a book, and you wrote this book, and I want to ask you, being the strong man, a woman, what a woman wants. What led you to that book?
Well, like I said, it was my own journey.
Yeah.
I came to the point of asking myself, what do I have to learn from this? And at first, I talked to other men, and the more men I talked to, the more men I listened to, the more I realized, boy, a lot of us are confused. We really, and it's true because it's like I said, we hear all these messages, and we're really not sure what we're supposed to be. Then I started reading books on relationships, and they didn't really answer my questions. And like I said, then when I turned to the wisdom that over the centuries has been written by older men for younger men, I was just blown away. I said, wow, this is what I hear women complaining is lacking in men today. They don't show any leadership. They don't. They can't make a decision, and they don't take responsibility. They don't want. They want to blame the other person. And it's all combined. It's like if you avoid showing your share of leadership and avoid making decisions, well, then if things go wrong, you can just blame the other person and not take any responsibility. And women will say when a man does that, it makes her feel like he's a child and she is his
Yes.
mother.
Yes.
And she doesn't want to be his mother. It was like she doesn't want, you know,
Yes.
she wants a man who wears the pants, not all the time, but she wants him to show his share of leadership. She wants him to be,
Absolutely.
and see, to men, and see, you got to understand, this is how men think. They hear all this stuff, don't be controlling. And like, okay, I don't want to be controlling. So I'll just let her make all the decisions. I'll let her handle everything. And I'm being a nice guy. But to her, she thinks, well, he's leaving all these responsibilities on me, and he's being the child. Like the men are.
Yes.
This is giant disconnect, and really, I can't tell the number of single women who will say to me that a guy asks them out, and then he can't even choose a place to go for a cup of coffee. He wants her to
Yes.
make. Hey, see, you're not thinking. What do I say this to women? They say, "Yeah, why
Yes.
why can't he why can't he make a decision? You're asking me out. Why can't he be?" I tell men, "Be a man with a plan. Like, you know what? If you think about what you've gotten to know about her and say, well, what would we both enjoy doing? Make a plan and figure it out. Like say, okay, let's go hear this music. It starts at 8 o'clock. I'll be there at 7 o'clock. And and women say, and then, we can't even choose a place for coffee. And then he says, they get to a place they can't even choose a table to sit at. He wants her to make all the decisions. And he
Yes.
thinks he's being a nice guy.
Yes.
I'm sure I'm being a nice guy. And I say to them, you're just leaving all the responsibilities on her, and she resents it, and it's
Yes.
a big turnoff.
Yes, I'm a very strong woman, very strong, and one of the things that turns me off about anybody, even in friendship, is someone that doesn't make the decisions, because what ends up happening is by not making a decision it leads to chaos, because someone who understands what they want and that can make a decision and be informed, even if it's a healthy decision or not or whatever, at least make a decision.
Right.
And I get what you're saying, because I have a lot of women that come to me too and say, you know what, my husband, I just they just sit around. I ask them, hey, what do you want to do? What, let's do. Like I gotta tell them what to do, like a child, clean, pick up, do this, and it shouldn't be like that. It needs to be a partnership, and a woman shouldn't expect a man just to take care of her either. It needs to be an equal partnership, and I think that's one of the things that we have to learn to start coming to, because we did a show a couple of weeks ago about self help and a lot of these books, and one of the things that we talked about is something similar, that you buy these books, help on relationships and help on your love life and help on all these things, and a lot of it's a lot of fluff. They don't really give you the information that you're looking for, because they're trying to sell you and they're just trying to make a buck on you. And really, it's hard to tell, because everybody's so different. You have 100 men. 100 men are going to think differently. They're going to act differently. They're going to respond differently, and it's hard for a book to tell you specifically how to get to, how to understand. But I think what's nice about your book is the fact that it directs more to that aspect. It's like, hey, this is the thing. I'm not telling you what to do, but these are the ideas that you have to understand for you to grow into a healthy relationship.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's because men want it. I mean, like I said, they want to be good husbands, and they're just so lost, and they can't understand. 70% of divorces are initiated by the woman. I mean, so many good men, good people, and they're divorced, and you think, they thought they were being good husbands. It's like I said. So what I'm trying to do is this. I teach men, like, you got to show your share of leadership. You can't leave everything to the woman. And so many men will say to me, "No one's ever told me this. I've never heard this before." It's like the most common response. Like, one fellow wrote a comment. He says, my girlfriend was breaking up with me. She says, you don't take the lead on anything.
Yes.
And he said, I didn't know what she meant. I didn't understand what she was talking about. This is what men have heard, for a lot of reasons. A lot of men grew up without fathers, or their fathers were minimally involved, or their fathers were passive also. And, they go to school. Most of the teachers are women. They watch television. The men are portrayed as incapable buffoons. Whereas today's man to learn about what it really means to be a man. So that's what I'm on my mission to change the men
and
of the
I
world.
and I think it's a wonderful mission. But Elliot, we're going to take a break, and everybody, we're going to be right back after these messages.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561-318-0006. That's 561-318-0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. If you're just joining us, we are with the fabulous Elliott Katz. And Elliot, we are having such a great time. And right before we went to break, one of the things that you said is some men grow up without a father. And I know there are single mothers out there, and they're listening to this, and they may not have the connection to their son, because it's the battle of the sexes, in that sense of, like, women understand women, and women and men understand men, and we don't understand each other because we're not living at that. So how women that grow up with being a single parent teaching their son, is there anything that they can do to teach their son to kind of understand these concepts?
Well, I remember being asked by a woman, can a woman teach a boy about being a man? She definitely can. I mean, she should encourage him, like, to realize a man has to show a share of leadership. You can't just be, doing whatever your wife woman tells you to do. She doesn't want that. She wants you to be a man and step forward. and be able to make decisions and take responsibility. Don't just blame. But one of the things also is that she can teach that, but it's really helpful if a boy has a male role model, a strong male role model, and if you can somehow, you know, find that, somehow a friend, like often, maybe, he has friends fathers that he could, do stuff with, and or you maybe an uncle, a grandfather, all these people. It's really good to just be able to watch, because I think, I remember myself, and I know other young men too. You're looking at older men. You're watching them. You want to learn from them. You want to see, how does a man do things? How does a man treat a woman? How does a man interact with other men, either socially or competitively? You're watching that. Now, that's why, like, sports are good. Like male sports, like, you get together, you're watching other men, how they behave. So if they can get them involved in some kind of connection with other men, just be able to watch and observe, and just sort of absorb it by observing them. That would really help. And but also, I think a woman can teach just by talking to him, explaining that this is what man has to do. He has to take responsibility. Don't blame. You see a problem, step forward, take the lead on it. Don't just tell your girlfriend or your wife or whatever you want. You decide. Uh, you know what? I remember I met this fellow he was about to get married, and I said to him, "Here's one piece of advice. Just remember, you're the man in the relationship." And he said to me, "Oh no, I let her make all the decisions. It's better that way." And I said, "Well, good luck to you. I mean, really, that's a man thing. It's better. I'll let her make the decisions. That way, if things go bad, you can't blame me, and she won't criticize me." And even, I talk to men's groups, and they say things like, "Well, my wife won't let me lead. What if my wife doesn't let me lead?" I said,
Yes.
"Just lead.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't need her permission. I mean, if what you're doing is going to be a disaster, and she tells you don't do it, well, don't do it. That's the
Yes.
benefit of having a partner. She can give you feedback and
Yes.
make you see things that you didn't realize. But if you're always just waiting for her to tell you what to do, she's going to be very fed up with you."
Well, I think that's important. What you just said is feedback, because I think a lot of men, and I see that all the time. Well, I'll just let her. She's the boss. If she's happy, I'm happy, and it turns into that very submissive type of role. And it doesn't have to be a dominant versus submissive role. It has to be an equal thing. And one of the things that I think that is translated is feedback, because I know a lot of times when people are giving feedback, especially after if they've given the power over, sometimes that power becomes to a point where it seems like it's very criticizing, and sometimes it is criticizing because it turns into frustration, and then all of a sudden it's like having someone yelling at you all the time, and then you turn into frustration, and that starts the downfall of any marriage, is because, as you said, if you're not taking responsibility, and you're not learning, and you're not growing together, and you're not being a part, because a woman doesn't want to be treated less than, a man doesn't want to be treated less than, and I think that that's the hard part, is because in the world today we're trying to battle each other for equality, and because throughout our history there was always a dominance of one side or another. Centuries ago, women were on top, then for centuries men were on top, and now it's like this. It's like, all right, we got to come to this equal thing. Each has to give to the thing. But one of the things that you said was observe how men observation of how, but say like a young man doesn't have a father, and they're observing men, but how do they know what is healthy for them? Because there's a lot of men out there that may be super aggressive and treat women not so well, and then they're observing, they're listening to you and saying, oh, well, I should observe this, and that's how I treat a man, or that's how I treat a woman, and it starts turning into a disastrous habit.
Right. Well, obviously, if a boy only has a mother, and it's his mother's job to, give him guidance, and keep him away out of from poor role models. It's one of the things I coach men is, you have a job. You can influence, like, the kind of man your daughter chooses by being that kind of man. Because you often hear a woman will say, "I married a man just like my father," and sometimes it'll be, "Well, he's a bum. He's a drunk." But
Yeah.
or he's a good man. He's just like my father. He's a kind, caring person, and I wanted a man just like me. So you have the opportunity to influence the kind of man your daughter will choose by being that kind of man. And the same thing with a son. I mean, if you have a son, you know, being be a good example of how to treat a wife, and your son will hopefully do the same. Well, it's so yeah, but if for a boy being raised by a single mother, that's her job to make sure he can be influenced by healthy role models. That's key. I mean, you don't want you know this whole thing about toxic masculinity. You want him to stay away from poor role models. It's very important.
So, do you think that's the reason why men are so frustrated? Is because society expects some things from. I mean, I grew up around a lot of men, and it was always placed on them that men have to act a certain way. They have to like certain things. You have to drink. You have to do it. And if you don't do this, you're not a man. And they start calling you a girl, or start using the F word, and it just, and there's a lot of pressure. And I think that's where things get confusing, because it's like women are like, no, you need to be sensitive, but at the same time in control. And I could see the frustration, because there's pressure put on women too, to be beautiful and to be thin, and to be all girly, and life just isn't that way. So do you think that's the reason why so many men are frustrated today?
Well, partly, I think it really comes down to parents being a good role model. I think when they're with their peers in their adolescence years and they do crazy things, that's common. But ultimately, a father or mother or parents need to say, this is to be good role models and to teach them. I think a lot of the frustration today is really about the confusing messages we hear. There's that sort of bad boy period, but like, what is it supposed to be? To be a man. Like, when I talk to men, like, they joke about it. Like, one man said to me, "Well, if my wife says if she wants my opinion, she'll give it to me." I mean, they're joking about it because they really think they're playing it safe by just going along with their wives. I mean, we don't want somebody at the other extreme who's domineering and controlling and doesn't listen to anything their wife says, and just nobody wants that. But a lot of men have just, well, I'm going to play it safe. I'm just going to do whatever she wants, and it's very frustrating for a woman. I joke about it. Like, one of the examples I often talk about is, a woman calls her husband at work and, I'm cooking supper. What would you like, chicken or fish? And he says, whatever you make, you decide. And she wants him to make a decision. It's really, make some decisions. Like, show you can make a decision, and just show your share of leadership. It's really, a woman wants to feel, a man is protecting her, and he's going to stand up for her, and often, like, one of the situations you see is, like, women will criticize their husbands, like, in front of other people, or put them down, or treat them badly, and the man will just laugh it off. He'll just think, he'll ignore it. He thinks he's being nice. Women resent that. Like, yeah, because if you're not going to stand up to her, you won't stand up for her. It's very important. These are some of the messages I try to teach men. You got to stand up. She treats you badly.
Yes.
You're entitled to be treated well, and just set boundaries and just say, I'm not accepting this. Like, you know, there's a lot of things. Another thing, like, women will say to a man is, "Oh, you're not doing enough at home." And the man, like, "What do you mean? I do this. I wash the dishes. I change the diapers. I give the kids baths. I put them to bed. I read them stories. I'm doing all these things. Whatever my wife tells me to do, I come home. She tells me to do all these things. I do them." And I say to this fellow, "If you're doing whatever your wife does, whatever your wife tells you to do, that's what a nanny does.
Yes.
That's not what a father does. Yes, help your wife. She needs help. She tells you things, but you got to do your part of knowing what's going on at home and taking the lead in solving problems. Then you won't be a nanny. Then you'll be a real husband and father."
And so many, and I've had past relationships that were like that, and I didn't want a child. I didn't want to have to pick up and tell people what to do, even in my friendships. And a lot of times it gets, even though I'm a very dominant person, it gets tiring being the one that everyone says, "Okay, Miss Raina, you make the decision. All right, where are we going tonight? You make the decision." And I'm just like, no, I'm not making the decision today at all. It's all you guys, because you guys have to learn. And it's weird because at one time it was hard for me to say that, because I grew up in a very strong household, and I grew up with two parents that were very strong. They both had, my father was a very strong person, my mom had a very strong personality, and so I learned that strength from both of them. It was natural because we grew up in business to just take over right away. And I found that that was actually hurting my relationships because I became frustrated because I was like, why aren't you doing anything? But at the same time, it was me that was taking the reins all the time without even giving the other person the option to even try to take the reins. And I've learned that even in my friendships, and I think that's very healthy because you said something about boundaries, and boundaries are the most important thing, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, or anything in the world, to have boundaries, because once the boundaries are established, there's more like a there's you're more comfortable with each other. You understand, okay, this is what I can do, this is what they're gonna do, and you kind of play off that. And I love the nanny scenario because yes, because if all you're doing is what you're being told, then yes, it doesn't feel like enough because you're only doing what's expected of you. And you should take that idea and say, you know what, this is my child, this is my family. I shouldn't have to be told what to do. I should take the reins and enjoy doing this because this is my family that I have.
And it's your job. I mean, it's hard work. I mean, I remember telling one fellow about the importance of taking the lead, and he said, "I'm a nice guy. I let my wife decide." But then he admitted, "Yeah, it's easier to let her make all the decisions and then deal with all the problems. Yeah, well, but then she sees you as a child, and she doesn't want all the responsibilities on her shoulders.
Yes.
She wants you to do your share, and that's that's sort of you know and it's that underlying that is this confusion of like, oh, I don't want to be controlling. I had another fellow who said to me, he was getting divorced. He says his wife doesn't like that he always talks about his feelings. And I said, well, how often, like, why, if you come home every day complaining that your boss was nasty to you, well, it gets a bit hard to take. Once in a while, if something sad happens, you can express your feelings, but she really wants to see you as someone who, has some backbone, who's a tower of strength that she could look up to. And if you always come home every day, whining about how your day went, it's a big turnoff. But he thought this is what women want because we hear this, oh, talk about your feelings. Well,
Yes.
yeah, occasionally, but not every day.
That's a huge difference because yes, complaining versus expressing our feelings is a huge difference. Like telling your wife and your partner that you love them, and expressing how you care, and just about life, and just like you said, decisions, expressing how you feel about a decision. Say like there's even household things that need to be done, or something like, hey, I want to redo the room. What's yours? That's expression of feelings. Yes, when you're coming home and saying, oh, my life sucks every day, and my boss, he's always mean. Yes, that's not that's not the expression of feelings that women, and vice versa. Men don't want to hear it either. And I think that's where we have to mature as a whole. Both sides have to mature because I know we. Being a female, we love to express ourselves, and sometimes our expression gets the better of us, especially when we're emotional, and it becomes that complaining. And men now have to learn how to express, because society tells you, no, if you're a man, you're supposed to be tough, you're not supposed to express yourself. If you express yourself, you're a girl. And it's like guys are like, I don't know what to do.
Right. That's just exactly why I wrote this book, because guys today really don't know what to do, and what they hear these messages and it's not working. Men think, well, I tried so hard to make her happy, and she's not happy. And he thought making her happy is just doing whatever she says, you know, working like a slave to pay for all these things. But what about being the man of the family? What about being someone who could, take the lead and make decisions, and and really be the kind of man that she really wants. It's one of the things I tell men. I've heard so many women complain, about dating, is, you know, men think they're showing they believe in gender equality if they split the bill or even have the woman pay for the first date. I met this woman. She said she met this guy, on one of these dating apps, and they went out for dinner, and then the bill came, and she offered to pay for it, and he accepted, and she said he couldn't understand why she wouldn't go out with him again.
See, that was a trick.
Well, I know. That's what I tell them. I said, she was testing you to
Yeah.
see if you insist on paying. So I tell them, first date, just pay for it. It's not the way to show you believe in gender equality by splitting the bill.
Well, I think, and I always joke around. I'm always like, chivalry's dead. Because I used to take the train all the time and I'd see all the women, even older ladies, standing up and the guys would be sitting. And I was like, and people would be like, well, you want gender equality. And I was like, no. I was like, having equal rights does not mean, like, I hold the door open for men. If I see a guy who's older or having issues or physical issues, I'm gonna give him my seat. It has nothing to do with it's called courtesy, it's called compassion, it's called respect. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. But you know what, Elliot, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back after these messages.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561-318-0006. That's 561-318-0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. If you're just joining us, we are in the last part. And Elliot, I've been having such an amazing time with you, and you have a wealth of knowledge. And I just love this topic because it's a topic that not a lot of people talk about. And you wrote your book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants. And it's from what I've seen, it's got great reviews. Great. What is the response you're getting from this book?
Well, I've got a lot of positive response. It's been very rewarding. Men and women have said, it saved their marriage, saved their relationship. I've had divorced women say that if their husband had understood these crucial principles, my marriage of 38 years would not have disintegrated. I've had men who are divorced say, if I had understood this, I probably wouldn't be divorced today. And why didn't somebody teach me this before? It's been a very rewarding response. And the interesting thing is, at first I thought I sort of wrote the book for myself and my friends. And then it sort of took off across North America. And then I got inquiries from publishers in Europe and Asia.
Wow.
And it ended up being published by publishers in 24 countries, 24 different languages, Europe, Asia, Latin America, Africa. So it really taught me a very important lesson, which was, this is human nature. We have people from different cultures, but really human nature. A man needs to learn these things. I think for many men, and I like to say most, but I think many men, it doesn't come naturally to us. We need to learn these things. We need to learn from a father. Need to learn from a male role model, or we can learn from a book that takes all this wisdom and puts it together. And it's like I say, the book was translated. Did very well in Brazil, where the whole image of machismo originated, and in Japan, where you think every man has a geisha. So it's all these cultural things, but really underneath it all, men are unsure of how to be men, and they need to learn. And this is the book that I put together, and it's just a wonderful response from the people who read it. And I tell people it's a lot cheaper than getting divorced. Try it, read the book, try implementing it, even if you don't. You don't think it will work? You don't think it'll make a difference? Try it. You'll see it make a difference. And the amazing thing, women will say, how do I get my husband to read this book? I get a more positive response from the women. They say, this is what I want. How do I get it across to the man in my life? I had one woman said, I'm going to give him the book. It's a short book, takes about an hour to read. And I'm going to tell him, read the book, then I'm waiting for you in the bedroom in my negligee.
What every guy wants to hear, right? I think that's important for us to understand, and I think that's something we have to ease up on. Life doesn't come with a manual. Life doesn't come. A lot of things don't come natural, and even for us women, we don't understand a lot of times how men understand things because we think differently, and that's just a fact. We both think differently, and we don't have that manual. I mean, it'd be great if how to raise a child came with a man, yeah, how to grow up, how to handle a situation. Even when we do a lot of shows and we talk about mental health and stuff, well, we don't get taught that in school. We're always taught how to prepare for how to work. We're taught math, English, science, all this stuff, history. We're prepared to work our whole life. We're not taught how to deal with each other, how to deal with our emotions, how to express things, how to understand things, how to work through relationships. And I think that would be great if school actually, I think there would be a better education if school taught us about life rather than just teaching us how to work. And I think that's where we have to ease up. And I love that you said that, was that things don't come naturally. And so I think that the guys should give themselves a break and just say, you know what, I don't know this, I don't expect it, and try to settle down a little bit and say, you know what, pick up a book like yours with a great information, and say, you know what, let me read this, let me try to understand that. And if they can't understand, I think it'd be great for them to contact you, and contact people that can understand, and take it slowly, because nothing is learned overnight.
What you were saying is so true that we don't learn these things in school, but when a man is in a relationship with a woman, she expects him to know these things.
Yes.
She just can't understand why he doesn't. It just sort of, it should come naturally to the man, and she expects that, and then when it doesn't, she's very disappointed and frustrated and fed up with him, and you know tosses him and divorces him. I mean, it really, it's like they just expect uh, men to know this. I just want to also add, oh, sorry, oh, my phone is, I should have disconnected it. Hold on, sorry about that. Um, I also want to say I put together an action plan to
Okay.
help people implement the ideas in the book. And if you want to write to me, I'll be happy to send it to them, and welcome their comments and any questions that they have. It's a
Well,
30-point action plan.
okay. What, before we, because I want to get into that in a second before we run out of time, but the expectation is something that we talk about all the time on this show. Expectations is the killer to everything. The moment you expect anything in a friendship or relationship, in your job, like a worker to do anything, that's the moment chaos starts to happen. Is because just because you do something, and women have to understand this too, we think a lot and we think here all the time, and we're always thinking, and I can't speak for men, but I don't know if men think that way or not. But it seems like there's just a different way we process things, and we think more emotionally. And I think women have to understand that, yes, we don't want to train a guy, we don't want to babysit, we don't want that. But at the same time, I think we have to give men a little bit of slack as well, and understand that they don't have this training, and just like we don't have training with them. And I think that expectation has to dissolve, because when we go into a relationship, most relationships, we have both expectations. Well, you're my love, you're supposed to do this, and you're my love, you're supposed to do that. You're a girl, you're supposed to do this for me. You're a man, you're supposed to do this for me. And it's just nothing but expectations, and the moment those expectations aren't filled, that's the dissolve of the relationship.
Right. And the thing is, the other person often doesn't really fully understand what the other person's expectation is. It's like I was saying, like women don't realize that men don't understand this. And so when they expect a man to act like a man and he doesn't, they don't realize he probably never learned. And you get frustrated with him because but he wasn't taught. How could he?
So without going into all your 30 points, would you be able to give us a point or two on the 30-point plan, or?
Well, okay, the first, it's divided into 12 parts. First one is showing your share of leadership. What are the steps? Like, a man will say, I've been married 10 years. She's been taking the lead on everything. What do I do? So I say, look for things that are not being dealt with. Don't undermine her. Don't say, oh, she's doing this. Oh, no, we're going to do things completely differently. Just look for things that are not being dealt with. Step forward and decide, well, is this something I should discuss with my wife, or should I just handle it myself? And use your judgment and step forward and deal with it. You will just keep. She may be shocked, but just keep doing that over and over, and you will be her hero. So that's really the key thing. And it's like, catch yourself. If she asks you to make a decision, catch yourself. If you're going to say, well, whatever you want, because men will say, well, it doesn't really matter to me. So it doesn't matter. Make a decision. It's easier. Thing is, the book is called, being strong. So what is being strong? Being strong is about controlling yourself. It's not about controlling others. So it's about controlling your emotions, controlling your anger. Nobody wants, you see somebody blowing their stack, you just look at them like they're a fool. And another thing is being manly. Manly is actually a very positive word. We talk about redefining masculinity. We don't have to, because being manly already means the positive admirable traits of man of mature character: courage, self-reliance, responsibility, integrity. This is what the dictionary says being manly means.
Wow.
Anyway, that's some of the examples. Oh, well, the importance of setting goals. Now, when you have goals with your partner, and there's challenges, those goals will help you overcome those challenges, because you see, we're going through this difficult time, so to help achieve our goals. So anyway, these are some of the things that the action plan deals with, and I'd be happy to send it to anybody who wants to email me. I'll send it to them, and we can change the men of the
I
world.
think the controlling part that you said is the most important for guys to understand, because I think that's the disconnection. They think that to be a man you have to, like I said earlier, you have to do certain things, act certain ways, be aggressive, and no, that's not. It's the same with being a woman. You don't have to act certain ways to, and I think that, because to me, when I look at a man, I see someone who's mature, someone who's confident, someone who's assured, but feels equal towards other people and accepting towards other people. And to me, that is more of a characteristic. And when I see guys that go out drinking all the time, smashing beer cans, to me that just looks very immature. And there's nothing wrong. I don't judge anybody in that aspect. Hey, that's your life. That's what you want to do. Great and stuff. But as far as dating aspect, when I see someone, that's what I look for when I used to date. I used to say, okay, well, is this person going to pull their weight? And is this person
Right.
going to step up? Like you said, do they have goals? Do they have the action plan? Are they mature in their character? That doesn't mean they're not flawed. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm flawed. We all have our quirks and our and everything. But I think that's the most important thing, is that we're looking for, and that's why I think your message is just amazing, because it puts all that aspect into one book, into one point, and for people to read it and understand, or for men to read and understand. Even women, hey, you guys want to start understanding a little bit more. I think women would benefit from this as well.
No, exactly. Well, I think it helps. I think I've heard of like couples reading the book together. Like they'll read it out loud and read a chapter and discuss it, and like, it's really, and the response has just been it's very rewarding. Like I said, to be able to make a difference and bring peace between a husband and wife and keep a family together. It's a wonderful feeling.
It's truly amazing that it's funny how our complications and our challenges and our experiences bring us to the wisdom that we go to, and that's why when people are angry at their past, I say, well, what do you need to be angry for? I mean, look, you took what you went through and made it into something wonderful to teach others, to say,
Right,
hey,
right.
this is something that you don't have to go through if you learn and understand that. And so many of us get caught up in that victim mindset where we think that, oh, well, like you said earlier, we start pointing the fingers. If you take that, what you've learned, that experience, even as painful it was, and take it and say, hey, you know what did I do? What do I have to change? What is my role? Because it doesn't always have to be, it's always me. Maybe it was 50-50, maybe it was more you, but it doesn't matter. What was my role? What could I change? What could I understand from that? I think that's where the growth happens.
Absolutely. And like I said at the beginning, if you're just going to wait for the other person to change, I remember I was doing that. I would read these books, and I could recognize all my partner's problems and how she had to change. But, you know, that's just a waste of energy. Look at yourself. And that's what the point of this book is. You know, you want to improve your relationship, and and you have to change yourself, and the other person will respond more positively to you.
Absolutely, that is a perfect message, Elliot. But all right, Elliot, we're at the time. Do you have any? Do you want to give out any information for them to contact you?
Sure. Okay. So the book is called Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, Timeless Wisdom on Being a Man. It's available on Amazon as a paperback and as an ebook on Amazon Kindle, Apple Books, and Kobo. And you could write to me and ask for the 30-point action plan. My email is ElliottRKatz at AOL.com. Now, Elliot, ELLIOTTTT at AOL.com. And you can go to my website. It's www.ElliottKatz, ELLIOTTKATZ.com. And you can email me through there, or just sign up to receive, articles that I write. And really contact me. Really, I'm on a mission. If you have questions and want advice, share experience, please contact me, because really it's sad to see so many divorces and children from broken homes. And that's really the mission here. And, read the book. It's worth it. It's better than getting divorced.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful message. Elliot, thank you so much for being on the show. Honestly, you have been a pure joy, and the wealth of knowledge that you shared today was priceless. So thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. If you're, make sure you follow our social media at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. Our YouTube is Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. Sign up on my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and receive hidden shows, VIP access, and special guest offers. If you have any questions about tonight's show or any show, email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. And always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you, and have a wonderful night.